I am Tianna. I'm the program director with the Women's Business Center of North Carolina. This is our logo right here. Um, we do a lot of great things for the community. We oversee 52 counties in the state of North Carolina with helping businesses grow and flourish. From the small to medium-sized business, we want to help you and provide you resources, and not just women, but minority business entrepreneurs as well. So we do a lot for the community. We have a lot of great events and classes just like this. You might have seen our schedule today has been absolutely popping, and I use the right word because we had about 4 different other classes today. If you probably were in the other ones, you would have seen how awesome they are, but we offer so many different resources and classes such as business taxes, how to get your taxes up and right, how to grow with Google and get your business on the map. And today is going to be something more of a treat for us. This is our special for Mother's Day. The theme is mompreneurship. And I was telling Miss Sheri Riley, our guest speaker, how this whole theme came to be. It really started off with my mother and how she had this dream of starting a kids' clothing line. And I was in the mall and I was like, I could get her a shirt and do something to just celebrate this new start for her. And I saw this shirt that said mompreneur. And it was pink. It was in white letters. It was so pretty. And I said, you know what? This is her. And so she's like, yeah, I'm a mompreneur. And what that means is not only are you a mother, you're also a business owner. And it's this beautiful balance of each of these different hats that you wear. And so that has a lot to do with not just your talent in the business industry, but also your home life. And this is such a special and sometimes overlooked thing that women don't get enough credit for, especially if you are climbing that corporate ladder and you've got a newborn at home, or you are trying to get your business to grow capital wise, and you got a lot of late nighters, or maybe you're even in school for your graduate degree, whatever it is, it's always a balancing act for women. And I know the women in the chats can say, yes, that's true. If you're in the chat, just type 1 or a heart. So I know you're agreeing with me. So I know somebody out there is resonating with this conversation. So I don't want to give too much away, but today Miss Sheri Riley is going to be conversating with us about this topic of mompreneurship, but more so exponential living, meaning we're not just going to say, and this one box is what we are, but we want to expand. And she's going to teach us how to do that today. And we're going to have this journey of a conversation and saying, one, how she has done that in her own life as a mother and business owner and someone who has climbed the corporate ladder, but also as a coach and strategist, and how to help other women and other professionals live exponentially. So I want to read Miss Riley's bio. I just have a short snippet because I want her to tell you guys about herself, her testimony and her story. It's just so beautiful. I know you guys are going to be really blessed for hearing it. So Miss Sheri Riley, oh my gosh, I'm so excited to have you here. Let me get your bio up real quick and just share with the people what we are working with tonight. I'm sorry, I've got all of these boxes up, so I'm trying to minimize them. But Miss Sheri Riley is an empowerment speaker, a life strategist, award-winning author, and founding partner of the Global John Maxwell Speaking Training Coaching Team. She works with individuals and companies on personal development fields of productivity and professional growth. She not only does this, but she has rose to the top of the entertainment industry. And she's going to tell you a little bit more about that and how she kind of worked her way through it. She's achieved so much, and she has a wonderful book about exponential living, which we're going to offer to you a little bit later. But that's just a little bit about Miss Sheri Riley. She has become a friend of mine. We've had great conversations, and I'm really thankful that she agreed to be part of this wonderful time. So Miss Sheri Riley, without further ado, would you just go ahead and introduce yourself? We got more people coming in, so I'm glad they came in just on time for when you're about to introduce yourself. So without further ado, Miss Sheri Riley, tell us about yourself.
Hello, everyone. Hello. I am so excited about tonight. I don't know if you can tell in my voice, I have a cold, which is interesting because in the age of COVID, I literally have taken 3 COVID tests because I'm just like, a cold, like literally it is a cold. I haven't had a cold in 3 years. So I just want to first acknowledge that because my throat is a little hoarse. But I'm so excited about tonight. And even when Tianna was like, you know what, because I've been in the bed all day. And Tianna was like, do you want to reschedule? And I said no. And the reason I said no is because as a mompreneur, I understand that we need consistent and constant help. We need consistent and constant, authentic information. Mm-hmm. And so I wanted to make sure, even with my raspy voice, and when you guys hear me without a cold, I pretty much sound the same. It's just a little deeper. But I wanted to get up and be available because here's the other thing. One of the challenges of being a mompreneur is the loneliness in it. Does anybody feel that way other than me? I know some of you guys don't have your cameras on, and I thank you. I would absolutely love, unless you are butt naked, I would love for you to turn your camera on. Now, if you're butt naked, you can leave it off. But if you're not butt naked, I don't care what's behind you. I don't care if you're in your car. Because the reason I'm so adamant about this being a conversation is because I'm committed to being here for you guys. There's a wealth of information I have being an entrepreneur for over almost 30 years. But the wealth of information means nothing if it's not relative to where you are and what you need. So if you're not butt naked, I would love you to thank you so much. Thank you. Turn your camera on. And as Tianna shared, again, I am Sheri Riley. I've been an entrepreneur now for over 25 years. My first business was Glue, a strategic consulting firm. And our clients were Converse, Nike, the NBA, Coca-Cola. We did strategic consulting, partnership brokering, and marketing communications. And maybe about 6 or 7 years ago, I closed that business, and we'll talk about that, and started a new business, Exponential Living. And Exponential Living is a personal, professional, and leadership development company that empowers professional athletes, coaches, entertainers, entrepreneurs, and corporate executives to grow personally and dominate professionally. And we do that through the 9 principles of exponential living that we've built out into 2 curriculums. And I share that transition because the truth of the matter is, even though I've been an entrepreneur for almost 30 years, a few years ago, I was exactly where you guys are right now for the second time, meaning I was starting something. I had no idea what I was doing. I knew nothing about the industry. I didn't have the relationships. I didn't know what to say yes to. I didn't know what to say no to. And I, as an older mom, I had my daughter at 39. I was a new mom. My daughter is 15. So when I started this transition, my baby was around 6. So I literally was not too long ago right where you are, even though I had 20 some years experience as an entrepreneur. So I'm so excited to be here. And I'm very transparent, and I'm very straightforward. And I'm very funny. So Victoria, Johnsy, and Savi, I'm assuming you guys are butt naked. So I'm looking forward. There we go. So I'm looking forward to our conversation, Tianna. And lastly, before I throw it back to Tianna, as I shared, the reason I'm out of my bed is because I want to be of service to you guys. So as much as Tianna and I have some questions that we're going to talk about, some conversational points we want to talk about, this is 100% about you guys. Jump in, unmute, raise your hand, interrupt. Because if we spend this hour together and you leave and your question is not answered, then you failed yourself. Because if I can get up out of my sick bed, you can ask your question.
Right.
You can dive into the depth of your vulnerability and put it out here, because this is a safe space. And I promise you, if you have the question, so does someone else. Okay? So this is 100% about you guys. So Tianna, I'm going to throw the ball to you and we're going to get started.
Well, I mean, that's perfect segue, because we are going to take it back to the beginning. And I know you probably have a really great story for us as far as your earliest experience in the industry for your personal business. So kind of share with us a little bit more about what your inspiration was for starting Exponential Living, and then also just kind of tie it into like what, like fueled it.
Yes. And I'm going to give you both, why I started Glue and why I started Exponential Living.
Yeah.
So when I was in college, I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I got a bachelor's of science in business administration, and my electives were small business, entrepreneurship, etc. So I always knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I was at LaFace Records, where I was responsible for the marketing of Usher, Tony Braxton, TLC, Outkast, some of the biggest artists in the 90s. And I'm from a small town in Kentucky, Richmond, Kentucky, very small town. And I had this dream of working in the music industry. And after a lot of no's, 8 years of struggle and sacrifice, here I am at LaFace Records, my dream job. I'm 20 some years old. I'm in my late 20s. I bought my mom a home. I had an unlimited expense account. I'm making six figures, and I was absolutely miserable. I was burned out. I was just absolutely miserable. And so people ask me, why did you resign from LaFace? And I'm like, I didn't resign. I crashed and burned. There's a big difference. I crashed and I burned. But what I realized in that is working at a record label was only one of my dreams. I also had the dream of being an entrepreneur. And so when I resigned, when I crashed and burned from LaFace Records, that's when I started my journey as an entrepreneur. And one of the things that I was adamant about then, and I'm adamant about now, is I've always been very intentional about starting with the end in mind, even before I read Stephen Covey's book. And so before I read his book, when I was 30 years old, starting my first business, Glue, I knew that as a Black woman, I did not want to own a Black woman company. And hear me when I say this. What I mean is, when I walk in the door, I'm a Black woman. That's a given. But I wanted my work, I wanted my company's resume to be non-gender, non-ethnicity, non-race. I wanted the body of work to speak to the excellence I knew that I could bring to the world. And so when I started my business with the end in mind. I wanted a luxury, high-end marketing firm. And what that meant was I had to say no to a lot of work in order for me to put myself in a position to say yes to what I really wanted. So that when I launched my business, my first clients were Nike, but Nike didn't pay me. Nike had a program in Atlanta where they gave me product, and I facilitated that product to influencers, but I didn't get paid money. But what I did get paid is I had Nike now as a client, a Fortune 500 company. The next company was Coca-Cola. And with Coca-Cola, again, I did not get paid. They asked for my marketing expertise. They asked for my intellectual property. And so again, I didn't get financially paid, but I had Coca-Cola and I had Nike. But again, remember, my end in mind was I wanted my resume, my company resume, to not speak to race or gender or nationality. So now when you saw Glue and you saw our clients, all you saw was Coca-Cola, Nike, TNT, Warner Media, right? But that's because I started with the end in mind. My first key that I want to share with you guys is get clear on where you're going so that you are very clear on how to start. Get clear on where you're going. So you're very clear on where you want to start, because that's not everybody's journey. I had colleagues that for them, they wanted to just make sure they kept money flowing and their business going. And so they took more opportunities than I did. Well, I had a savings from when I left the company, so I could make those strategic decisions. They didn't have a savings. So you have to really look at where you are and what's the best strategy for you, because this is not a one size fits all journey. Always have mentors, advocates, and coaches, but it's not a one size fits all journey.
Right. And I just want to emphasize, and Ms. Sheri, she's being real humble right now, but the list of the notable organizations and influential individuals that she has worked with, like, just goes on and on. And just the name of who she's worked with: Usher, she has worked with Scooter Braun, like so many different people. And even we named before John Maxwell's organization. Like, this is not like someone who doesn't know what she's talking about. This is someone who's got some skin in the game. So her advice, I just want to encourage you to just lean in and take note. Okay. So I wanted to pause you right before you kept going, because my question I have for you is really about that support system that you had. Now, you're talking about your dream and knowing exactly what it's supposed to look like. I mean, I couldn't agree with you more, right? And at the Women's Business Center, we help with resources, but sometimes we need different type of support. Sheri, tell us a little bit about your dream support and what that looked like for you at the very beginning.
Yeah, so now I'm going to jump to starting Exponential Living, because I was crystal clear with Glue, the consulting firm that I had. But when it was time for me to launch Exponential Living, I was lost. Remember when I just said I was clear, I knew where I wanted to go. So with Exponential Living, I didn't have a clue. I didn't know anything about the industry. All I knew was that was the passion that I had. And so I had to be very intentional about the team of people that I put around me. I joined the John Maxwell team so that I could learn what speaking and coaching and training was. I got very active in the Georgia Minority Supplier and Developers Council, WeBank. I got very involved with that. I also made sure that I had coaches. I'm a coach. If your coach doesn't have a coach, that's not the coach for you. But I made sure that I had coaches that were at a higher level than I was, so that I could definitely ask them, and that they were very transparent in their answers. And then I also made sure that I had peers that were at the same level that I was at, so that we could commiserate and support each other. And I made sure that those peers had children. Some of them had husbands like I did, because I wanted to still be a wife and I still wanted to be a mother. And we're going to talk about being a mompreneur specifically in a minute. And so I was very intentional, but I was also very intentional about what I needed, so that I could be intentional about who I made sure was in my team, or my circle of influence. I knew that as a Black woman, there was information that I would not get that white men would have access to. So I was very intentional about having white men in my circle of influence. I knew that there was information that people that had been entrepreneurs much longer than me would have, because there's an experience they would have. I made sure that I had entrepreneurs that had been in business longer than me. I made sure that I had entrepreneurs in my circle of influence that had a higher income level than I had. And I also made sure that I had people in my circle of influence that were smarter than me. One of the greatest challenges to being an entrepreneur is you need ego to go out and do what we do every day, because we only eat what we kill. But you also got to be humble enough to never be the smartest person in the room. So that's how I was very intentional, Tianna, about, and still at this next level, I'm still intentional about that same commitment to that circle of influence that I have around me at all times.
Yeah, that is everything, right? Like your network, the people that you surround yourself with can either build you up or tear you down. And so I love that you mentioned that, because it's so true. I think when we're making that switch over to what we want from where we're at, we got to do some snipping, right? And I'm guessing that you've had to, stop certain relationships or even certain habits in order to get to that part. And so we're kind of segueing into this exponential living a little bit. Tell us a little bit about your habits and how you got to exponential living and making glue so successful. And then also some advice for the women here who can get there as well.
Yes. So when like I said, I had Glue for 17 years. And that was my strategic consulting firm. And I'm a woman of faith. I don't put my faith on anyone, but I am a woman of faith. And so when I transitioned to Exponential Living, to the personal professional leadership development company, and as I've already shared, I didn't know anything about that space and place, but I knew that's where God was calling me to serve. The first thing that I had to do was I had to stop going everywhere. I had to stop doing everything, and I had to stop talking to everybody. I had to stop going everywhere. I had to stop doing everything, and I had to stop talking to everybody. Now, the reason I highlight that is but those were the 3 critical things that I had done that made my company Glue successful for 17 years. So I literally had to absolutely go against the strategy that had allowed me to be successful. But in that surrender, what I ended up having to do is I had to educate myself. I had to build a whole new network, and I had to learn a whole new way of doing business. But the most important thing is, as I shared earlier, I had this young life. My daughter, I had a bonus daughter, and I had the daughter that I had. And in stop going everywhere, stop doing everything, and stop talking to everybody, what I began to realize is the value of no in business was allowing me to say yes to my children. The value of no in my business allowed me to say yes to my children. And the value of no in my business allowed me to determine what are the most important things that I should be focusing on. What I talk about in my book, Exponential Living, is we have this massive to-do list. And as entrepreneurs, we believe that we have to do everything in order for our business to stay successful. When the truth of the matter is, no, we have to do what's most important. And what I do is I literally identify what are the 1 to 3 most important things to focus on every quarter. And then what are the 1 to 5 tasks that I need to focus on to accomplish that goal in that quarter. Warren Buffett is a billionaire. Warren Buffett puts together the 25 things he needs to do. He then identifies the top 5 things and he throws the other 20 away. Exactly. Let me say, hold on. Sandrea, I think it's how you say it. That laugh, that's exactly it. I would have a heart. When I first read that, I was like, oh my God, I can never do that. What about the other 20? What if that is something in there that I'm supposed to do? What if I fool around and that was the most? He throws it away. He don't give it to an assistant. He don't give it to a project manager because he says the 5 most important things deserves all his attention and deserves his company's attention. And I have lived by that philosophy for the last 7 years, and it has allowed my productivity to increase exponentially. When I got past the fear of what I was not doing, I was able to, 1, get more productive in what I needed to do, and I had more time to give to my children, which honestly is the most important thing for me.
I love it. Oh my gosh. I mean, I feel like I need more than just an hour with you, Sheri. Like, we're going to need you to come back more often because that was just everything. I mean, so many nuggets in just that little bit and focusing on the top important things in your day and in your quarter. Like, that can help us because how many of you guys know? I'm pretty sure as moms, there is a long list every single day of the things that you need to do. And when you add in the mix of a business, whew, goodness. So prioritizing is so huge. And I love that you mentioned that, Sheri. So I would love to talk a little bit more about this mindset that you had and these habits that you were creating. It's so interesting that you had to cut out and go against kind of what society says of making friends with everyone and saying yes to everything, because you never know when the next meal is going to be, or you never know when the next opportunity or what could come from that. I love how you said you let your discernment guide you and your intuition guide you, because it lets you know what is for you and what's not for you.
Mm-hmm.
So share with me a little bit about that sifting process as it relates to exponential living, as well as how it ties into the identity of the mom and who she is and what's for her and her business.
Absolutely. And here's where I want to get very, very transparent, because you guys, Tianna has done an amazing job sharing my past and the level of influence that I've had and the success that I've had. I mean, I've literally worked, if you can name someone, I've probably either worked with them or I've been 1 degree from them. I've had a very successful career, and I'm excited about that. But when I transitioned from Glue to Exponential Living, my entire life fell apart. And this was only like 7, 8 years ago. My marriage, my husband and I were separated. My father passed. I was born on my dad's birthday. I am 100% a daddy's girl. I'm an only child. I walked away from Glue, and I'm transitioning to this new business. So financially, there was zero. And I ended up homeless. My youngest daughter and I ended up spending a year in my girlfriend's spare bedroom and or a motel. So I want to give that transparency, because I don't want you guys to go, oh, she doesn't understand my struggle, because I heard she worked with Usher and I've done all those things. But when I started this second business, when I say I was exactly where you are, I was less than you are, because I didn't have a place to live. But in that place and space is where I really learned to make what's most important, most important. What I learned is balance is a lie and a myth. I say that in the first 60 pages of my book. Balance is a myth, because the reality is, if I was on a work trip in Los Angeles and my daughter was here in Atlanta, Georgia, where we live at school, and she ended up with one of her asthma attacks or an allergy attack, and she needed to come home, balance says I should be able to go pick my daughter up. No, I'm in Los Angeles. And so then balance makes you feel guilty because you're in Los Angeles and your daughter is sick in Atlanta. What I believe in is full life integration. And what full life integration says is that I'm going to integrate all the elements I need to be a successful mother, to be a successful wife, and to be a successful entrepreneur. Because I believe in and, not either or. I'm going to say that again. I believe in and, not either or. So if I'm in Los Angeles and my daughter is sick, either or will make me feel guilty. You're not there to pick up your sick kid. But the word and full life integration allow me to have a network of other mothers. Because my husband travels a lot as well. So we have a network of other mothers. Some are entrepreneurs, some are not, that I could call and say, hey, Dominique is sick. Can you go to school and pick her up? And I know that that mother loves my daughter the way I love my daughter. So my daughter is still getting motherly love. It's not her mother's love, but it's motherly love. You tracking with me? If you're tracking with me, put a 2 in the chat box. If you're tracking with me, put a 2 in the chat box. Okay. Tianna's tracking with me. Okay. Who else is tracking with me? I want to see who's tracking with me. Okay, John. Okay. Shannon. Hey, Shannon. So in that full life integration, you create that network as an ongoing reality of your business. What do you need as a mompreneur? What do you need? What support do you need? You need other mothers that can care for your children when you may have to be out of town, or if your business meeting runs over. You need a network of entrepreneurs that understand that we only eat what we kill. So when your friends who work at a company say, I don't have any money, they mean I don't have any money until the 15th or the 30th. But when you're an entrepreneur and you say I don't have any money, that means I don't have any money until I kill the next thing, right? So you need a network that understands what that means. And so in creating that full life integration, Tianna, what that does It allows you to get very intentional about where you spend your time and what is most important. And for me, I tell people all the time, my number one priority is wife, mother, then entrepreneur. But my number one is me. Mothers, entrepreneurs, you can no longer serve from an empty cup. I'm going to say that again. You can no longer serve from an empty cup. The first thing we have to do is stop feeling guilty. Stop feeling guilty. You're not going to make every play, but you need to make the plays priority. Y'all tracking with me? You're not going to make every play, but make the plays a priority. So now, if I do miss a lacrosse game, my daughter knows I've been to 9 out of 12 lacrosse games. She understands if I miss that one, but the others were always a priority. She knows she's a priority. I integrate my daughter into my work. I take my daughter on my speaking engagements with me. When I was working on my book, I did it when she was working on her homework so that she felt a component and a part of my business. She's never felt like my business took me away from her because I've always engaged and involved and communicated with her about the work that we're doing together. I did this at 3, I did this at 6, I did this at 10, and now I'm doing it at 15 because the conversations I have to have with her about my business at 15 is different than what I did when we were 3, right? So as a mompreneur, integration, the word and instead of either or, release yourself from the guilt, and then make sure that you fill your cup first. And if you'll give me about 2 minutes, Tianna, I want to share something that's critical. Most of us, especially as women and especially as entrepreneurs, we put ourselves last. Raise your hand. I know some of you don't have your cameras on. Am I the only one that was guilty of making myself last? Okay, I see some of the hands. And I ask you guys, if you're not butt naked, turn your camera on. I would love to absolutely see your face. And if you're not butt naked, I don't care what your background is. I don't care what you got going on. If you can, turn your camera on. But what I want you guys to know about filling your cup first is you can no longer serve your clients or your family on fumes. So if you can envision in my hand right here, this is a saucer. And sitting in this saucer is a cup, like a coffee cup, right? Thank you, John Z. I see. Okay, perfect. Thank you for that. And so this saucer is holding the cup. Most of us are serving from an empty cup. When the truth of the matter is imagine water filling the cup, and the cup is filled with water so much that it runs over the sides. And then the cup is filled so much that the water runs over the side of the saucer. So the water is running off the saucer, right? Well, here's where we're supposed to serve. We're supposed to serve from our overflow, not from an empty cup. Not from an empty cup. So when you fill your cup first and it begins to overflow, your family, your clients, your church, your sorority, your community, all those other responsibilities you have, they're supposed to receive from the overflow. Thank you for your service, Olivia. I see you're at work. They're supposed to receive from your overflow. And what that means is you have to be committed to determining what fills my cup. And I'm not talking about a vacation once a year, right? I'm not talking about landing that big client and now you got a big check and you can go buy yourself something. No, daily. What fills your cup daily? One of my clients that I coached, when we worked on this, she said, you know what, Sheri? If I could just from 9 to 9:30 every night, just be in my bedroom by myself, the 2 kids, the husband, for 30 minutes. I just want to be by myself. Matter of fact, I don't even need it every night. If I could get it 3 nights a week, that would fill my cup. We were able to do that. It was hard for her, but she finally committed from 9 to 9:30. She told the kids, the hubby, unless the house is burning down and you can't put the fire out, don't come and get me from 9 to 9:30, right? If you can put the fire out, leave me alone. Literally, about 2 months later, she called me. She said, Sheri, guess what? I said, what? She said, I opened up my bedroom door at 9:30 and my son was sitting at the door. And I looked at him and said, baby, what are you doing? And he was like, Mom, I'm just waiting for 9:30. I got something to ask you. Right? Another one, my client said, walking his dog. That's what fills his cup, because when he's walking his dog, that's the only time that he really feels he's at a place of peace. Another client said taking a bath every Sunday night is filling her cup. So what I want to charge you with and challenge you with is, what do you do? What is that thing that allows you to fill your cup daily so that you can serve your children, your husband, your spouse, your clients, your community from the overflow? And that right there is so critical, because we will think that we got to put ourselves last in order to be successful. They call it mommy guilt, right? When the truth of the matter is, we can no longer serve from the fumes. We have to serve from our overflow.
Oh man, I'm like looking at the clock and I'm like, I need more time. I need more. Like, oh my goodness, it's so good. And ladies, if you're taking notes, please write down what she's talking about. She's giving us some gold nuggets. I see you, Tabitha. I see you, Sandara. Yes. The very first part you talked about with having that village and connection to your community and your network is so important in what you need. And it makes me think of relational intelligence, which I'm sure plays a pivotal role in exponential living. So ladies, we're going to talk about this in a little bit. I'm going to give it like 2 more minutes. I'm going to ask one more question and then we'll open up the floor to some questions and conversation. But Sheri, I'm wondering what this whole thing, as far as identity, looks like for you. You talked a little bit about the Black woman company stigma, and I'm pretty sure women of the minority and all races can feel that stigma as a woman, and just that pressure to either exceed or be underestimated. Tell us a little bit how we can overcome that. And then ladies, afterwards, we're going to open up the floor again to any questions that you have. And please don't limit it to just this conversation. Sheri is such a well diverse, like she has so much experience. So please don't just limit it to just this conversation afterwards. So yeah, I don't know if you remember my question, but tell us. Okay.
Yeah, it's so very important for us to know our value and own our greatness. Know your value, okay, Tabitha, and own your greatness. A part of the challenge when we walk in rooms, and there's many rooms that I'm the only Black woman, I'm the only woman, right? I am very intentional. I speak on stages where many times they'll say, oh, you're the first Black woman, or you're the first Black person, or you're the first woman we've ever had speak. I work with men. And one of the things that I encourage female entrepreneurs to own your value and own your greatness. When we sit at that conference room table, or when you walk in rooms and you pitch your business, I don't ever want you to talk from the place of, and what I call it, talk from the place of an excuse, right? And that sounds like this. So I would just like to share, because now you're opening up with this validation that you're validating, right? When you say, I would like to share, or any derivative of that, versus the idea I have, or where I want to provide impact. Y'all see the difference? What I would like to share is like you're asking for permission. But when you say what I want, or here's the idea I have, here's the impact my company will provide. Little tweaks that make all the difference. When you own when you know your value and own your greatness, it allows you a level of confidence that matches your drive. Because every woman on here, you're driven. I know you're driven, or you wouldn't be an entrepreneur. I know you're driven, or you wouldn't be on this call. I know you're driven, or you wouldn't still be fighting the good fight. My challenge to you is, I need you now to have your confidence match your drive. Because most of the time, we're driven, but we're not confident. And that's a whole teaching that I do. So when you know your value, when you own your greatness, it allows you to 100% walk in your confidence so that when you sit at that table, you don't sit there as a woman. You don't sit there as a minority woman. You sit there as an entrepreneur. And as an entrepreneur that brings value to the conversation. When you walk in and when you present your company and you're working to get that deal done, you do it from the state of, I know I can deliver the work. And lastly, and one of the greatest nuggets of wisdom an entrepreneur gave me was when you state your pricing, if it doesn't make you feel like you're going to throw up, then your price is not high enough. If you don't feel like you're going to gag, your price is not high enough. Because pricing is the area that many of us cut ourselves short, right? And I've had, for both of my businesses, I've had people say all the time, if you don't have the money, don't come to Sheri. And they say that to me like I'm supposed to be insulted. And every time they say it, I go, that's exactly right. That's because remember how I started my business. Remember, that's how I started my business. So when people come to me and say, oh, I would love to work with you, but I don't have the money. They say that because they want me to feel bad about my price. And you know what I say? There's so many things that I've had to work for to get to the position to get the money because it's something I wanted to do, but I didn't have the money. I don't feel bad about my pricing because I know the value. And when you price according to your value, you are then able to say no with authority, but you also are able to say yes. There are so many things that there are not so many, but there are very intentional things that I say yes to that I don't get paid because I know where I can serve. But I'm able to do that because I know when to say no. And I also price for the value that I bring. So it puts my company in position where I can say yes to where I want to serve or where I want to give or where I want to support. But if you're constantly undervaluing your services, then you take your choice away. Write that down. When you undervalue your services, you take your choice away. And you as an entrepreneur, you're doing this so you can have choices. Right? Right? We want choices. That's why we became entrepreneurs. Yes. So I'm excited about hearing you guys' questions. Please, please, please do not get off of this. Text Tianna and say, oh, can I please have Sheri's number? Because I want to ask her a question. I'm going to tell Tianna to say no. And here's the reason. Not that I'm being hard, because you're being selfish. Because the question you're going to ask can not only help you, but it can help someone who didn't even know that was the answer they needed. So don't be selfish. Ask your question here and help all of us. Okay? Okay.
And ladies, I do just want to give a reminder, we don't have to just limit it to mompreneurship. This can be corporate talk. This can really be about anything. I mean, Ms. Sheri, she has so much knowledge and expertise. It's really amazing. So while you guys get your questions geared up, I do want to remind you, Ms. Sheri, she has some great materials that can help you in your walk, that can help you with getting prepared as a mompreneur. So she has this book called Exponential Living. Shannon, if you could you put the link to where we can purchase this book in the chat so that we can all go in and look and get it and read it? And, honestly, have these ideas that Sheri spoke about expanded on, because I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, okay, well, how do I do that? Right? Sometimes we always have that question. How do I do that? And a simple conversation won't give you all of the ins and outs that you need. And that's why books were invented, right? So all of these words can be put together. So get the book. And we are definitely going to bring Sheri back because we need more. Okay. So she's very busy and I got to catch her. Now I got to catch her because before she was like, I'm free and now I got to catch her. So, so if anyone has any questions, just unmute yourself and let's get started.
I would like to add with the book, and Tianna hit it. I was like, I don't want to read another self-help book that just tells me the problem. Like I know you're, there you go. I see you trying to read it there. I genuinely wanted the how, like, how do you do these things? And these 9 principles are the how. How do you stop spending 100% of your time on 10% of who you are? How do you live in that place of integration? And I know Shannon puts it in there, but it's sheririley.com/shop. sheririley.com/shop is where you can get an autograph copy. So the book, the ebook, and the audiobook are available anywhere books are sold. But for autograph copies, you can go to my website, sheririley.com/shop. Thank you, Tabitha. Now, the floor is open, and I know you guys have questions. I know you have questions. And here's the challenge. If you don't have a question, then I would, and y'all can tell, I do not mince words. Then I will say you are limiting your ability and limiting where you're going. Because every time I get in a room with someone who allows me to ask questions, I'm going to ask the question. I'm going to ask a question because I know there's so much that I need to know. Is it San? Tell me, unmute yourself and tell me how to pronounce your name correctly. Oh, I think she froze.
Bobby?
There we go.
Is that me?
Yes.
Yeah. I'm just starting my business now. Okay. Just maybe a couple of months. I just got all my paperwork done, and I retired 30 years in the technology business, and I want to do something, sell my services basically. And so what is the best organizationally? Is a sole proprietorship better than the LLC, or go with LLC? I'm kind of even struggling on the starting points,
Yeah.
Are you an LLC?
I am actually an S Corp. I've owned real estate. I have a real estate company that I own, and I actually just started another real estate company. There are LLCs, but I own, my main business is an S Corp. And what I would highly recommend is to talk to an attorney and an accountant, and goes back to starting with the end in mind. And there's a great book. A friend of mine, Lisa Bonner, just released a book called The Legal Tease, and it's TEAS, Legal Tease. And she actually talks about and gives insight for new entrepreneurs about S Corps, LLCs, and sole proprietors. But there are attorneys and accountants are so critical in starting a business, and they can also help you decide based on what you want your business to be, where you want your business to go, if you should be an S Corp or an LLC. And also depends on the type of business. So my consulting firm, and now my personal professional leadership development company, those are S Corps because that's the best business structure for that business. Those LLCs, my real estate company is LLC because that's the best business structure for that type of business. So I would highly recommend Lisa Bonner's book for all new entrepreneurs. And I would also recommend having a conversation with an attorney and an accountant so that you can talk through the best strategy for your particular business.
That's what I was thinking. I was going to go talk to an attorney and see what his recommendation is. Good. Thank you.
Yes.
And Savi, I would also add, if you haven't already, get some business counseling from the Women's Business Center of North Carolina. I'm getting ready to drop the link in the chat right now. And we have 3 different counselors, business counselors, that are amazing professionals that do this on a daily basis. We work closely with the SBA and getting government contracting, hub resources, all of that. So I would encourage you, register for it. Here is the link in the chat. Okay. Sandura, I see you have your hand up. I'm going to go ahead and unmute you so you can ask a question.
I think she's frozen.
Oh, there you are. Okay. You're still muted. Let me see if I can do that for you. Okay. All right, you gotta unmute yourself.
Yeah. I said, while we're unmuting Sandrea, what I'm going to do is I'm going to answer Johnsie's, I hope I'm saying that right, Johnsie or Jonesy's question about how you go about finding your mentors while we get her unmuted. Okay, perfect. And finding mentors is very challenging. And it's one of those things where you have to be very intentional about making yourself accessible to the people you want to mentor you. So one of the things I always say is don't just walk up to somebody that you're at a conference and you think they are someone that could really mentor you, and you walk up and you just out of cold say, I want you to mentor me, right? Because they're probably a person that gets that 100 times a day, right? And what you want to do is you want to build a reciprocal relationship with that person. And so how can you serve them? I'm an anomaly because I mentor a lot of people, but most of the people that I now mentor just because of my time are those that have put themselves in my circle of influence by how they've showed up, how they've served me, or how I've seen them serve others in my circle of influence. So I know now where they are and what they're doing. And so there's a reciprocal knowledge of each other, not just them knowing me, but me also knowing them. So that's one. You want to put yourself in a position, if they are a leader in an organization or a nonprofit and you can volunteer, or if they have programs that they're doing and you can attend. So allow them to know you as you know them. The second thing is mentors don't just have to be people that you can touch and talk to. Several of my most important mentors I've never met.
All right,
Michael Hyatt is a mentor of mine. I've never met Michael, but I'm on all of his webinars. I read his books. I go to I get his emails. Donald Miller is a mentor of mine. I've never met Donald Miller. So also identify people that you may not have direct access to, but they're constantly feeding you information. They can serve as a mentor as well. So a lot of times we think mentors have to be someone that we touch directly. It doesn't. We just have to have access to their information. And then when you do identify a mentor, someone that you work with directly, that you can have access to, absolutely deliver. One of the greatest ways to end a mentor-mentee relationship is for you to meet with that mentor, and then the next time you guys meet, you didn't do anything that y'all talked about.
Right.
So every time you meet with that mentor, have 1 to 3 specific questions. And I mean specific, not how did you get started? How did you make your first million? Those are too broad, and they're way too broad. What you want to say is very specific questions so that you get real information. So instead of saying, how did you get started? A better question is, what are the 3 biggest lessons you learned the first 5 years of owning your business? Right? See how specific that is? And then at the end of it, if it's a 15-minute call or a 30-minute in person, whatever that timing is, always walk away with 1 to 3 action items that you're going to do, so that the next time you guys meet, you can show that the time they spent with you was not wasted. So if you say if your one takeaway was, and I'm going to go back to what Savi said, if the one takeaway was, I'm going to meet with an attorney and accountant, I'm going to go through the resources for the Women's Business Center, and then I'm going to legally determine which way I'm going. S Corp, sole proprietor, boom. That's her takeaway. Well, the next time she meets with that mentor, she should be bringing her articles of incorporation or whatever her documents and say, hey, look, that is done. You want to make sure you've actually done what you and that mentor talked about, so that the mentor knows that it's not a waste of their time. Because the only asset we really have, the most valuable asset we have, is time, not money. You can get money and lose money. Time, that's the only asset that you can never get back. It's the most valuable asset we have. So I hope that helped with the question about mentorship. And then are we able to unmute? Is it Sandra?
Yeah, Sandra asks, she just put her question in chat, so I'll go ahead and read it for you, Sheri.
Perfect.
She asks, did you use the SBA in getting started with either of your businesses, and how?
So I did not. I probably should have, but I did not. I literally hit the ground running. And I just went out, hustled, and brought in business. This time with my second business, I have been more intentional about learning where the difference between growing a business and scaling a business. So I didn't use the SBA, but I did use other resources on a consistent and constant basis. But I am 100% an advocate of the SBA. I am a 100% advocate of entities like the Women's Business Center. We have several of them here in Atlanta. I was always, I've been an advocate of being in environments and groups of like-minded individuals that give you resources, relationships, and information.
I hope that answered your question, Sandra. And I see that in the beginning we had a question from Victoria. She mentioned how she cries sometimes, and she talked about vulnerability and, oops, I'm sorry.
Oh, hi guys. I'm so sorry. This was in the beginning of the webinar when she was stating, Sheri was stating just about how it's hard. It's a lonely journey of being an entrepreneur. And in my journey, I've been trying to connect with so many different women. It's been hard for me to really talk to men. I just feel like rejected most of the time. Even like sometimes on Instagrams, I join some lives. People talk about their journey. And I speak of like, you know, my vulnerability of just being alone in this, not having any mentorship, not really having family, not having just that village to lift me up when I'm feeling like I'm crashing, or just when I can ask of a point of view, anyone that's older than me that can give me some advice. Like I have no one. I just literally have myself and sometimes my boyfriend. So it's really just a lonely journey. And then I've just recently, through like my flight attendant job, met that I don't have anymore because I quit wanting to go trailblazing through in my entrepreneurship. She has been kind of discouraging as far as telling me, well, maybe you should just, you know, get a job and focus on that, and hearing that from, you know, traditional adults. It's kind of like, well, maybe I should, you know, with each trial, each challenge, it's like, well, you know, I'm kind of in between. I'm straddling the fence of doing my business, working through my business, and looking for a job, looking for like freelance jobs. And it's like, no, why don't you just put your all into your entrepreneurship and your business that's already been established? Because you're scared, you're saying, well, maybe, you know. And I just want to be in that circle, in that atmosphere of people that constantly encourage me that, hey, you know, you need a grant, maybe you should take a week off and look at this, you know, just point me in the right direction, or just give me a push, or just enlighten me, anything. But I'm not in those spaces. And it's been so hard to figure out how to even find or think of those spaces to be in with those kinds of people.
Victoria, thank you for your vulnerability. Thank you for your authenticity. And there's a few things. May I love on you hard, Victoria?
Yes, please.
Okay, I'm going to love on you hard. One, I don't want you to ever say again that you do not have those spaces, because you're here.
Right.
You're here.
Through my fight. Right.
Yeah, you can't. So you can't. Now you can say, I want to add to, right, or I want additional spaces. But the Women's Business Center of North Carolina, you're here. So you do have a space because you're here tonight, and you can now add to those. The other thing I want to share with you and everyone here is that to be very transparent as an entrepreneur, I say this, I've been saying this for over 25 years. As an entrepreneur, 6 out of 7 days, I want to go get a job. It's that hard. The only reason I don't say it on the 7th day is because I'm too freaking busy to think about it, right? 6 out of 7 days as an entrepreneur, I'm like, I'm going to go get a job. This is too much. This is too much. But the reality is, all of us feel that way. So even when you're by yourself, you're not alone. Even when you're by yourself, you're not alone, because there's a community of entrepreneurs that feel the same way you feel. And the other part is, I realized my husband, who was not an entrepreneur at that time, he could never understand the challenges I was going through. So I quit trying to get him to have a conversation with me that he couldn't have. And my friends, though they love me, they're not entrepreneurs. So they could listen, but sometimes I needed a little bit more than a listen, because they're still just indulging me, but they're really not connecting with me, right? And so what I'm saying, Victoria, and to everyone, is there's ebbs and flows that you're going to constantly have. You're going to take advantage of this community, be on every call you can be on so that you can feel this like-mindedness, and then be intentional about other organizations like this or other entrepreneur events. I promise you, there's a slew of entrepreneurs on IG that are constantly doing webinars and seminars and lives that you can come and feel what it's like and get in that community. I can name 100 of them. Arian Reed, who's a colleague of mine, has the Fearless Fund. She has a community of female entrepreneurs that she's pouring money back into female Black-owned businesses. There's Patrice Washington. Patrice Washington has a podcast, Redefining Wealth, that is a community of female entrepreneurs that is always enriching and always caring. So the truth of the matter is, the communities are out there. You just have to stop saying, I don't have it, and own the fact that the Women's Business Center is one, and then be intentional about finding others that may be outside of your immediate environment. It may be from a digital standpoint, as you continue to cultivate the one that's right there for you in your community. Victoria, does that help?
Yes, so much, Sheri. I was saying amen throughout the entire time. You're right. I do have to fix my way of speaking, because that also comes from a bit of living like in the past and like now, right? And just speaking forward, like I'm going to have, or I will have, or I have, I want, like you say, instead of, yes, like the past tense, or I want to do this. I have it.
Yes.
This is what's going to have. I'm projecting this for this time because now this is going to happen. Like I need to speak more of that. So yes. So since I've been feeling a little frantic about, the people I know and, oh, she's so expensive and things like that. Well, how do I create a network and all those questions? I'm literally speaking those things and answering those questions in my actions with my frantic feelings of, okay, what do I need to do? Let me do this. Let me do this. Let me do this. Like so now every single day I have about 6 webinars through Eventbrite, just going through Eventbrite, through every single thing, Cosmoprof, every single thing, Googling so many women empowerment. When can I catch this webinar again? I'm watching webinars twice. So every single day I have about like 6 or 7 from 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock. Sometimes I have to reschedule because they're overlapping. So I'm feeling that now as I continue to speak it. And literally, as you're speaking about intention, not wanting, because before I'm like, I need to go to the club, I need to go to the brunches, I need to go to all of these gatherings so that I can put myself out there, myself back out there and, socialize and things. But now I'm feeling like, no, I don't want to burn myself out. I don't want everyone's attention. I want the right people's attention. And it's just been a scary journey. Trying to
Victoria,
iron those things out. Yeah.
I just want to love on you too. Okay.
Thank you.
And
sorry
spread the love. You're good. Sometimes we got to coach ourselves up, and that takes the mapping out process, like Sheri eloquently expanded on, and even with the community. I just want to remind us of what Sheri taught us tonight. we've got to figure out what communities we want to be in. Sometimes we inherit communities that are not healthy for us and do not put us in a position to where we want to get to. So just like Sheri said, strategically map out those different communities that you want to be in and the people that are going to influence you. So ladies, I really hope that you enjoyed this conversation. I'm so sorry I stole 6 minutes of your time, but look, I promise we're going to bring Sheri back and we're going to have more time with her. But please do me a favor right now, go in the chat, click on that link and purchase Miss Sheri's book. You do not want to miss out on the great things that is in her book because you just don't know them, right? You don't know what you don't know. So hold on to these resources, grab this and this opportunity and take it. There's so many people who don't have this link right now, and you have it. And you got the presence of Sheri, you got the presence of the Women's Business Center in your corner rooting for you. So I want to encourage you, get that book today. And finally, before we close out, I want to remind you the Women's Business Center of North Carolina is having our 6th annual Moving Forward with Purpose conference. And so if you have not purchased your tickets yet, I am so glad because you have a wonderful opportunity. I purposely waited to put in the chat that you guys here, the people who have waited and stayed to the very end, you get a special discount just for coming to this class. Now, obviously, I couldn't have offered it to all 20 people, but because we have this nice group here, I will offer it to you guys and go ahead and put that link in the chat. Please join us for our conference. If you want more information, just go to the Women's Business Center website. That's the nationalinstitute.org. But I'm also going to put the Eventbrite link here in the chat. So before we close out, Miss Riley, would you like to give us any concluding words of advice? Just one thing, if there's anything that we can walk away with from this conversation, share that with us.
Yes, the one thing I would love to share with you guys is the power of no. And that means we all know there's power in yes. Yes, I want to be an entrepreneur. Yes, I am a mompreneur. Yes, I want to grow a successful business. But one of the greatest lessons I've learned as an entrepreneur is the power of no. No is a complete sentence. And when you know the power of no, it allows you to be able to understand that no is not making you against someone else. No is you saying yes to you. And when we have that struggle between what to do and what not to do, many times we're only committed to what do I say yes to? And what I want to challenge and encourage you with is also balance that out with what do you need to say no to? And that allows you to get more peace, more clarity, and the courage on what you actually need to say yes to. So thank you guys so very much. It would be my purpose and my pleasure it was my purpose and my pleasure to serve you guys this evening. Thank you for everyone in advance who actually purchases my book. Those will, I will, when we get the orders, I will autograph those and get those out to each and every one of you. Tianna and Nathaniel, thank you both. Thank you to the Women's Business Center of North Carolina for allowing me this opportunity to share and be of service this evening. And I thank you guys so much.
Thank you so much. Well, ladies, again, all of the links are in the chat. And if there's anything that we can help you out with, please let us know. Go to our website and check out Miss Sheri Riley.